Hey horror fans, and welcome back to Room 237. Coming at you with another review upon request. This was a request by the DeathMetalelitist, and he wanted me to review Devil's Rejects, 2005. Which he also wanted me to review House of a Thousand Corpses, which is on my channel. Now, the thing about Devil's Rejects, it came out in 2005. This is his sophomore film and follow-up to House of a Thousand Corpses, the sequel. And I didn't see those movies when they came out. They just kind of blew by me. I didn't really know what to think about them. You know, I guess I didn't really grasp the concept of, like, a musician making movies. But I saw both of them around probably 9 years ago at this point. And I kind of always liked A Thousand Corpses. For a while I said that was my favorite zombie film, just because it was the only one that doesn't really have those zombie signatures that I'm not a fan of. This one is the start to that. You know, I consider A Thousand Corpses sort of like, okay, heavy metal musician gets to make a movie. Kind of feels like a music video at times. It's very experimental. It's different. But now, you know, he's going a bit more realistic, kind of, and that's what this is. It's like the realistic version of Thousand Corpses. That's why, you know, Sid Haig doesn't really wear clown makeup. Why Bill Moseley doesn't really look like an albino and he has a beard. There was actually a deleted scene where Dr. Satan was taken out of the house, but he deleted it because he thought the character just looked out of place in this environment. I agree. But I would say this is the start of Rob Zombie's movies. By that I mean all the tropes that make a Rob Zombie movie a Rob Zombie movie. Set in the 70s, the Deep South, classic rock soundtrack, you know, just the worst, nastiest kind of hillbilly psychopath imaginable. Dialogue that is very colorful. It's not as bad as future films. You know, obviously the two Halloween films and 31 would be the worst. But, you know, just that dialogue where it's just like, fucking fuck you in the fucking shit, and I'm gonna fuck your pussy in the ass, I'm gonna skull fuck your dick in my cock and dick and fucking motherfucker fuck you, motherfucker shit and dick fuck. Throughout the whole movie. Granted, it's not that bad in this. It's just more of characters just yelling, fuck you. Like, look, that's a whole conversation. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm not a prude to profanity, but it does get to a point where it doesn't really feel like dialogue anymore. I will say Devil's Rejects isn't as bad. And even though that is a trope I make fun of, the most recent zombie review I did was on 31, and that's probably my favorite zombie film now, even more so than Thousand Corpses. Another trait of zombie films is the cameos. You know, obviously you get your core cast of Bill Moseley, Sid Haig, and of course Sherri Moon Zombie. William Forsythe as Sheriff Wydell, the guy that's after them. His deputy, who was Doofy on Scary Movie. And, you know, the banjo band that they hold hostage at the hotel. The old guy was in House of a Thousand Corpses. He was the girl's dad. The younger guy, he was in 31. He was one of the orderly rapists in Halloween, the one that raped the girl in Michael Myers' cell. think, I want to say he was in another one. Maybe he was in Lords of Salem. I don't remember. Ken Foree. Michael Berryman. The one stripper that works for Ken Foree, she was the Harley Quinn type girl in 31. Of course, Danny Trejo, Diamond Dallas Page. Just cameos up the ass. I actually like that original cover more, but oh well. It definitely does set the aesthetic for like a 70s grindhouse type movie, which I do like when the film opens up and after, the shootout with the cops, because after what happened to 1,000 Corpses, that officer got killed. So now, William Forsythe's the brother. He's the sheriff, so now they're going to the Firefly home. And the shootout is kind of silly. I mean, once the police force gets inside the house, they have like this sort of like armor that, like, crudely made like armor, and they have like skulls painted on it. It looks kind of silly, but it doesn't last long. Then of course after that we see like other cheerleaders that are like held captive, and we get the opening song by the Allman Brothers over a freeze frame of the girl screaming with this font and vibrant red. So it has that grindhouse feel. I love the way the title looked. And, they're on the run. The sheriff's after them. The only Firefly that got caught was Mama, who is not played by Karen Black in this. Instead, her name Priscilla Barnes? Was that her name? What the frig? Why is she not popping up? Okay, Priscilla Barnes was not. That's Gloria Sullivan. So that's the wife of the old guy in the banjo group. Oh, and Matthew McGrory came back as Tiny in a very tiny part. I am really wondering why she's not popping up under cast on Wikipedia. We will go to IMDb. But anyway. And there's a big chunk of the film where they hold up at this, Fleabag hotel. And that's where a lot of the scares come from. There's this banjo group, this older couple, this younger couple, and Brian Posehn as the roadie. And this whole scene is pretty much why... Leslie Easterbrook. She's the one that plays Mama Firefly in this one. She did a lot of overacting. I mean, there's even one scene where she's in like the interrogation room and she's like writhing in the chair and doing like weird, like almost evangelical cackles. But anyway, I'll say right off, I would say this movie is overrated because of movies in the last 15 years or the 2000s. This one always comes up as like a favorite, which, I mean, it's better than a lot of other stuff that's come out in the 2000s. The Ring, The Grudge, The Village, Paranormal Activity, A Haunting in insert state name, shit like that. But I never really understood why, and this is one of those movies where, and the hotel sequence is the prime example. Because you have long scenes where, first of all, Sherri Moon Zombie as Baby is one of the most annoying characters in horror. I would put her down there with Tina, or I put her up there with Tina from Halloween 5. I would go that far. There's a whole scene where they're in the hotel room with the banjo group, and she's doing this thing like Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees, look at these. And she does it a bunch of times. It wasn't as long as I remembered it being, but it's still long enough. And then, Bill Moseley takes the wife of the older guy and, sexually violates her, humiliates her in front of everyone for his own kicks. And I've seen stuff done like that in other movies that work, that are effective. Here, and I've said this with other Rob Zombie movies, it feels like a 14 or 15-year-old was given free range to do whatever he wanted. And, I'm going to put this really rapey stuff in here, and talks about being the devil with the rapey stuff, and it's gonna be horrific. Granted, it is horrific, but it feels, no pun intended, forced. It feels like it's trying too hard. And that's always been my main complaint with this movie is, okay, House of a Thousand Corpses, you have the wacky, goofy, aberrant, psychopathic hillbilly family. You have a modern day Chainsaw Massacre type film. Okay. Here, it's like, and I don't know where I was going with that, but just that whole hotel sequence, just with the sexual violation, it just felt like it was trying too hard to get under your skin. And, I don't really know. And that's why I would say it's overrated, because I feel like it is trying too hard. Also, with these movies, you really get to know what Rob Zombie is into. For example, he really wants to get across that he likes real-life serial killers. As do I, so I'm able to pick up on this stuff. Beginning of the film, when you hear the TV broadcast, talks about, what was found in the Firefly house. It says, skulls you used as ornaments. And we hear that as the cops are, going through the house. It's like, oh, that's an obvious reference to Ed Gein, who was also referenced in House of a Thousand Corpses. We hear another thing that says, a graveyard of bodies buried in the crawl space of the house. And just at that point, they're looking at this scrapbook, and they see, a drawing of, a clown face that looks very similar to Pogo, John Wayne Gacy, who had the crawl space under his house. And then the whole thing about, Otis saying that he's like the devil. Even when he kills the old banjo guy, he says, I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work. That was what Tex Watson said during the LaBianca murders. So, and the fact that, Otis acted more like Manson, just with his crazy philosophies and, almost talking in riddles. But here, he went all out Manson with the hair and the beard. See, Otis, played by Bill Moseley, I thought he was more threatening in Corpses, to be honest. I did. His look, even though it was obviously inspired by his character Chop Top from Chainsaw 2, he had that weird look, and the fact that, when he is quiet, you can tell his gears are turning. His crazy philosophies on life and status and murder and life and death. Here, it just feels like the angry, edgy 8th grader, wrote the sequel, and this is what we got. And there's nothing against Rob Zombie. I don't, when I watch interviews with him or listen to commentaries, he sounds like a very intelligent guy. Very well versed in horror and film and, the history of horror. And he has his own takes on things. I just don't think it's coming out, at least for me. I know a lot of people like, his movies, and what's really crazy is even Roger Ebert and Roper gave it 2 thumbs up. Roger Ebert, the kind of guy that thought movies like Friday the 13th and slash films in general were highly misogynistic and violating towards women, yet this has the hotel sequence. But there was stuff I did like when they all get together at the hotel. Otis goes towards the last girl that's alive in the group, and he has her husband's face, and he's doing like, oh, the Banjo and Sullivan show has been canceled tonight. I liked that. I thought that was creepy. Taunting her with her husband's face. That's creepy. The only real creepy imagery would have been this scene when that girl is left behind, hanging up on the door, and the maid comes in, and they put the husband's face on her, and you can see her eyes underneath it, and she's all traumatized. Which her arms are free. And I know it's nitpicking and you don't get the scene without it, but why did she just rip the face off? That's why the maid was running from her, because she looked all fucked up. I thought that part looked creepy. It was well done. But it also leads to my other major problem with this film, and I'm really surprised Rob Zombie went with it. The CGI. When she runs into traffic and we see what's left on the road, afterward, yeah, we get some practical guts, but there's a lot of CGI blood smear on the road. When Baby throws the knife at the older banjo lady, it hits her in the chest, and she's not wearing a shirt, she's wearing a bra. And the blood runs down under her tit and then just starts, dripping fast. But a bra is cloth, so I didn't think just a single stream would just go down and start dripping and be, absorbent. Extreme nitpick, but you would think a guy who's a fan of 70s and 80s horror would have went full practical. I thought the CGI was terrible. I know I'm not really going into the plot because, I don't really think I need to go point by point with this. It's just it's not even so much that they're just trying to lay low. These are just 3 people who love to torture and kill and violate. They don't really need the hostages at the motel. They just chose to. And that's the thing. They love doing what they do. This isn't a movie about them staying low. It's a movie about them trying to get to a safe point while also continuing what they want to do. Which, Sid Haig, that was another cameo, I forgot, PJ Souls from Carrie and Halloween. He just knocks her out and steals her car. But I do like the scene of him with the kid, don't you like clowns? Aren't we fucking funny? The kid's crying, and then he just threatens to kill him and his family. He's just like, now go on and get your fucking ass out of here. I thought that was funny. And then, then they get to Ken Foree as his brother. They get to his strip club, and Rob Zombie sort of had this thing about how, he tries to humanize them and make the sheriff look more like the bad guy. Because when they get to the strip club, you know, they're drinking, they're partying, singing along to Rocky Mountain Way. And William Forsythe, the sheriff, is sitting by himself, reciting, you know, vengeful Bible verses to himself in the mirror. And I know Zombie said it's a play on the phrasing that the righteous man is a lonely man. It's trying to humanize these people, but your humanizing doesn't really work when you've spent the whole part of the movie showing them that they are just the most despicable examples of human beings just for the sake of it and for the fun of it. You know, you try so hard to make them look like, you know, devil's rejects that it's hard to pull off humanizing them. I will say that it was satisfying to see them get tortured at the end by William Forsythe. But then, of course, he just goes psycho, and I know Rob Zombie is trying to make it seem like he's just as psycho, just on the opposite end of justice. And then you get the ending where he tried to ruin Freebird for everyone, which is actually my mother's favorite song, and she's never seen this. We get Freebird in its entirety, them driving down the highway, they think they're free, and then there's just a line of police, and they just, when the 17-hour guitar solos come in, they just guns a-blazing. Which, of course, when it was announced that Three from Hell was going to come out, I was like, how the hell is that going to work? But I still haven't seen Three from Hell. That's something I want to Redbox. But I don't have a debit card, so I can't. But I'm sure there's more that I'm leaving out. I did have a lot to say about this, but Devil's Rejects, when I say it's overrated, I don't mean overrated in the sense like The Ring or The Grudge, where I don't like it at all and don't understand why people like it. I get why people like this. In fact, it gets grouped in with torture porn, which I don't really agree with. I can kind of see it, but I don't agree with it. You know, I think of like Saw and Hostel, but, you know, I see why people like it. I just don't really agree with it tenfold. Overall, it is the start of the Rob Zombie tropes I'm not a fan of, which ironically 31 is the biggest example. It's my favorite zombie film. But, you know, it just, all the horror aspects, like, especially the hotel sequence, it feels really it's trying too hard. It's trying too hard to be disturbing instead of just, I guess, telling a scary story. Also, I've never liked the character of Baby. I always found her annoying. A Mama Firefly was overacting. She wasn't Karen Black. I liked Karen Black a lot more. I didn't mind the realistic take, but it feels like Rob Zombie went to this. Well, he was in the 70s in House of 1,000 Corpses, but it didn't feel as obvious. It's like he went to the 70s and he never came back. And in fact, what is it? Rugsville? I'm guessing Rugsville is like 3 miles away from 31. Just deep South 70s. But yeah, overall, I like it enough to where I could say I like it. I would just say I think it's a little overrated. And I think it tries a little too hard. Never liked Baby, and the CGI was very disappointing. Anyway, that is my review on Rob Zombie's sophomore effort. And by sophomore, I don't mean that in terms of quality. I just mean it's his second movie, The Devil's Rejects. Thank you for watching.